Hello, welcome to GeoBytes. I'm your host Bhanu. For the next 25 minutes, I will bring you the latest developments from projects, products, policies and businesses from the geospatial industry. But first, let's take a look at the top story today. The 36th Esri User Conference opened in San Diego on Monday. Industry leaders, experts, partners and users from across the world congregated here for the week-long deliberations. Esri President and founder Jack Danjamon welcomed over 16,000 geospatial enthusiasts to the conference. In the keynote session on the opening day of the conference, Danjamon elaborated on why geography is an integrated science. He said, geography connects us with other sciences, providing a context to better understand the world. And this understanding is the key to solving the problems.
The theme, you might have noticed, is applying geography everywhere. And these three words I'd like you to think about through the week. Applying geography, the science of our world, everywhere. Let's start with this. The world that you and I live in, as the little opening video suggested, is increasingly challenged. Population growth, pollution, overconsumption, unsustainable patterns, social conflict, climate change, loss of nature. These are not good stories. One asks the question of themselves from time to time, at least I do, is where's this going to go? Is this really sustainable? And clearly, in my view, it's not if we continue the patterns that we're on. Geography, the science that you, especially you on the planet, work with, is a kind of integrating science of our world. It actually brings together all the other sciences: hydrology, geology, climatology, sociology, anthropology. Kind of the ologies rest on the spatial dimension. And this framework provides rich content and also a kind of context for understanding everything. And understanding is the key. It's one of the keys that will help us address and take on the big challenges of our world today. I think that's probably why you are here, whether you knew it or not.
Elaborating on the future of GIS, Danjamon said the integration of GIS with other technologies is providing a platform for web GIS. And this platform provides us a whole new reach, applications that are easy, trendy, and analytic.
In its digital manifestation of geography, goes beyond just the science. It provides us a framework and a process for applying geography. And whether you are conscious about it or not, it brings together observational science, measurement, and integrates it with modeling and prediction and analysis and interpretation so that we can understand things. This is its foundation. And that understanding can be integrated into designing and planning things and making decisions and ultimately action. This virtuous cycle is at the heart of what GIS is about. And whether you are conscious of it or not, this is what you're actually implementing in your various organizations. Creating information-based understanding that leads to rational action.
Talking about the professional development, Danjamon said Esri is investing heavily into online learning processes. Throwing light on Esri's direction for the coming years, Danjamon said the organization is trying to bring in a whole new generation of users and a network of young professionals.
This organization is about serving you, serving what you need and want. And it's also about advancing GIS and the geographic initiative, promoting, supporting the notion of geo-enlightenment on the planet. As an organization, we're strong and we're continuing to grow. We're dedicated to this notion that we want to integrate science and technology to make a better world. And through your work, we get pretty excited watching it and seeing it evolve. We've been investing heavily in your professional development with a number of initiatives to do lifelong learning. This includes meetings like this, just getting together and enjoying the wonderfulness of being together and learning. But also more specifically, more virtual classes, a number of initiatives, MOOCs, these big, massive online learning efforts, Esri Press now with several hundred books, certification, the GeoNet system, which is a social media environment to try to keep what's happening in this room going all year long. And this year, a couple of announcements. One is home use licensing will extend to the entire product, not just the desktop. And also we're integrating in trying to bring in a whole new generation of users with the Young Professionals Network. This is intended to bring into our family more young people. Similarly, we have a rich and vibrant partner ecosystem with several thousand formal business partners, some of them gigantic companies that we collaborate with in many ways. And then thousands of organizations who extend our product or work with our product to really support you, and they're all committed basically to your success, and you'll see many of them here this week. And then recently, in the last year, we've gotten very engaged with the whole community of startups, and there are now hundreds of these that are getting the notion of GIS. I would say getting the light, but that's too much. They're getting the notion of geography and its power and what maps really deliver in the new innovative startup community. Similar to that, we support about 5,000 NGOs with software and training and technical support. They engage with us like the Audubon Society and all of these listed here. We provide our software virtually with no cost to them, and they're lighting up the world. They're not only making a difference with the tools, but they're also enriching, my sense is they're enriching our fundamental community, all of you directly or indirectly, especially in conservation, understanding and protecting nature, but also in education, not only higher ed, but also throughout the entire school systems. We now have thousands and thousands of schools around the world who are bringing GIS into their core curriculum, getting kids at an early age, and you'll see some of them today.
Martin O'Malley, former governor of Maryland and U.S. presidential candidate for 2016 elections, also participated and delivered the plenary address. Highlighting the importance of GIS movement, O'Malley said, "From authority to democracy, from exclusive awareness to inclusive awareness, from command and control to empowered collaborations, we are creating a well-connected and better informed citizenry."
Day. You might recall this next slide from earlier today when Jack Dangermond spoke. It was created entirely independent of my little slide by Jack to describe the changing nature of geographic information sharing. It shows the movement of geographic information from that lockbox atop the bureaucracy to the open center of a collaborative common platform in the cloud for shared geographic understanding. It is the same movement. It's the movement from hoarded information to distributed information, from authority to democracy, from exclusive awareness to inclusive awareness, from command and control to empowered collaborations for progress. And ultimately, the great hope is that we are creating a better connected and better informed citizenry. Individual citizens who can drive a dynamic, crowdsourced conversation with each other, with their leaders, and with their neighbors who actually serve in their government.
The day also saw Esri awarding over 100+ users for their accomplished work. One of the prominent awardees were the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development (ICIMOD), an intergovernmental agency in South and Central Asia, which was honored with the Esri Humanitarian GIS Award for their assistance to the government of Nepal following major earthquakes in April and May this year. The conference will go on till July 24th. Drone deliveries are not new, and this time it is definitely not the pizza that is getting delivered. It's perhaps the medical supplies. In a significant move and the US first, drones made a delivery of medical supplies in Virginia with the blessings of NASA. Last Friday, some undeserved patients in Virginia were helped by an unmanned aircraft system. The patients were helped during research flights to a medical clinic in Wise County, Virginia. Authorized by the Federal Aviation Administration and a full-sized aircraft operated by NASA's Langley Research Center and a hexacopter drone operated by Flirte delivered pharmaceuticals and other medical supplies to an outdoor free clinic. A NASA Langley fixed-wing Cirrus SR-22 aircraft that can be flown remotely from the ground picked up 10 pounds of pharmaceuticals and medical supplies from an airport in Tazewell County in southwest Virginia. The plane, which always has a safety pilot on board, delivered the medicines to the Lonesome Pine Airport in Wise County. The flight allowed Langley to look at the safety case of use of UAS to deliver supplies to remote areas. The supplies were further separated into 24 small packages so they could be delivered by small unmanned drone to the free clinic during a number of flights over 2 hours. A company pilot controlled the hexacopter, which lowered the pharmaceuticals to the ground by a tether. Healthcare professionals received the packages and distributed them to the appropriate patients. Virginia Senator Mark R. Warner said the successful delivery was a win for Virginia's test site and a real Kitty Hawk moment for the unmanned systems industry, which is highlighting the humanitarian possibilities of this technology. Frank Jones, Deputy Director of NASA Langley Research Services Directorate, said the first unmanned aerial delivery gave them a chance to do some critical research and mission exploration with Cirrus SR-22. The aircraft remotely beyond the visual line of sight for the first time for a portable ground station. This allowed them to demonstrate a new capability that can be used to test unmanned mission concepts and aircraft technologies in a remote location. We will take a quick break, and when we return, we will bring you more news from North America.
Geospatial industry is evolving with time, adding newer dimensions, converging with other technologies, and expanding across verticals. Feel the pulse of its growth story. Catch technology innovators, system integrators, business drivers, and policymakers share their knowledge, experiences, and ideas at GeoBuiz Leaders Summit. Join the knowledge pool.
Welcome back. Google is planning to relaunch its Map Maker tool. The tool allows people to make edits to its Google Maps service. Map Maker will now give its community of users more powers to moderate digital vandalism. The tool was discontinued in May this year following a controversial incident, a clash of sorts of Android and Apple logos that were discovered on Google Maps in Rawalpindi city of Pakistan. Now, as per the new model, Google Map Maker will be choosing mappers in each region to make them a regional lead on Map Maker. Google's automated moderation systems and the regional lead will review the edits made in a lead's region. Besides, Google operators will moderate edits in these areas occasionally. Map Maker was first introduced in 2008 to allow Internet users to plug gaps in Google Maps. In another development, Smart Better Cities has announced the public release of Cloud Cities. It is an intuitive 3D city service with features for community engagement, easy city data sharing, and analytics. Company officials have defined it as a YouTube for 3D city models. Stakeholders can easily explore new city developments and observe existing places they live, work, and visit. Dashboards provide detailed information about space allocation, energy consumption, and costs. Cloud Cities content can be completely self-operated and published directly by the planning development authorities or private contractors. Users can upload their geospatial and building information and even link live sensor data from smart devices. Trimble has announced setting up of building point distribution partners in Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. The move is part of the Building Point network, which focuses on sales and services for its design, build, operate portfolio of software and hardware solutions. The solutions allow users to create and transfer constructible models throughout the DBO life cycle, right from the concept and design to the field and back to the office. Building Point will provide a primary vehicle for bringing Trimble's DBO solutions to the market. Construction professionals in each regional building point will support users in achieving the optimal construction technology solutions for each project. This support will have a combination of hardware and software, consulting, virtual design and construction services, personalized training and technical support. GIS service provider Geographic Information Services GISI has announced that its board of directors has approved the spin-off of its operating unit GISI Indoors as an independent company. The new business is named Geometry. GISI Indoors develops solutions for organizations in the emerging space of indoor location technology. The setting up of Geometry as a separate business will accelerate growth through new strategic partners and investors. Michael Hylander, a founder of Geometry, believes the fast and straightforward deployment of the company's software as a service products will help them quickly realize the benefits of indoor location technology. In another positive development, Imagine It Technologies has released Scan2 BIM 2016. The move makes this popular point cloud software product compatible with Autodesk Revit 2016. Imagine It has also introduced two new time-saving utilities for Revit: Dependent View Copy and Adjust Pipe. Scan2 BIM takes the ability to view point clouds in Revit one step further. This helps users to create and validate a model from a point cloud with automated recognition and placement of architectural elements such as walls and columns, as well as MEP elements such as pipes, ducts, conduits, and more. The latest release features automated recognition of pipe batches from a Revit point cloud. Dependent View Copy automates the creation of dependent views, such as different levels of floors in a building. An Adjust Pipe solves the problem of joining segments of piping when they are out of alignment. We will now slip into a short break, but when we return, we will take a look at what's happening in Africa and Asia.
Once again, Trimble is leading the way in positioning technology with the new Trimble R8S GNSS receiver. An entirely new way to look at receiver possibilities. Simply choose the configuration and features you require today. Then, add features as you need them tomorrow. It's the ultimate in scalability. With this innovative receiver, you tailor your system to your job, to the way you work. Choose the level of configuration that suits your needs. As your requirements change, the Trimble R8S can adapt. You simply add functionality whenever you want it. Each Trimble R8S comes standard with integrated Maxwell 6 chips, Trimble 360 tracking technology, and more. All to keep you productive and expand the reach of your GNSS system. Plus, it offers our exclusive web UI for remote monitoring and the new Trimble DL Android app for GNSS data logging. And the Trimble R8S maximizes productivity by easily integrating with the Trimble S-Series total stations and our innovative V10 imaging rover. For ultimate field efficiency, combine the Trimble R8S receiver with a Trimble controller and the intuitive Trimble Access Field software. Trust Trimble Business Center to help you edit, process, and adjust your data. It's the kind of solution you have come to expect from Trimble. We've been setting the standard in positioning technology for more than 30 years. See how we're raising the bar again with the Trimble R8S GNSS receiver.
Welcome back. Earth observation data provider GAF has bagged a contract to support the Ministry of Mines and Energy in Burkina Faso to establish a new computerized mining cadastre and registry system in the country. The project aims to improve governance in the mining sector by establishing a modern, web-based system for granting and managing mineral rights. The rollout of the mining cadastre solution will increase the institutional capacity and efficiency of the ministry by providing a comprehensive mineral tenure management. In a new development, the Japanese government will fund and support the replacement of the Karachi meteorological radar with 1.95 billion yen. The assistance is part of the wider aid plan called National Multi-Hazard Early Warning System Plan, an arm of the National Disaster Management Plan, formulated with Japanese assistance in 2012. This includes the replacement of another weather radar in Islamabad and the installation of a flood forecasting system in conjunction with UNESCO. Japanese-funded Karachi radar was established in 1991 along with other radars, and these contribute to the meteorological radar system in Pakistan. A total of 7 radars monitor precipitations and tropical cyclones in the country's southern region. The device has, however, become obsolete and needs to be replaced by a digital Doppler mode radar and would deliver more precise weather forecasts and warnings. Hiroshi Inomata, ambassador of Japan to Pakistan, says that Japan will continue to work with Pakistan to make it disaster resilient, making good use of experience and expertise Japan has gained from many disasters in the past. GIS-based mapping and tagging of tuberculosis patients is on the anvil in India. Every year, about 12 lakh people are diagnosed with tuberculosis in India, and about 2.5 lakh die from the deadly cough. The country has the highest number of tuberculosis cases in the world, and a majority of the cases go unreported and undiagnosed. This move will ensure that tuberculosis cases in India do not escape detection. The Health Ministry proposes to send out SMS reminders to the patients along with automated voice calls and text alerts. A senior official is optimistic that new initiatives such as weekly phone calls reminding patients for their next visit to the doctor are expected to play a key role in reportage of TB cases. That's all we have for you in GeoBytes today. Log on to www.geobiz.com and follow GeoBiz on Twitter. Stay tuned for GeoBiz exclusive interview.
Can you tell us a little bit about Geo and what it is that you do in the organization?
We have a lot of obviously formidable competitors in the mapping space.
But saying human geo, I was perplexed. Why the name human to the geospatial angle?
If we think about land, I mean, land is a key core to prosperity.
Thank you, Hugo, for speaking with GeoBiz and Geospatial World.
Roger Longhorn, thank you for coming to speak to us, to the Secretary General of the GSDI. Can you give us a little, for those who aren't familiar with GSDI, can you talk a little bit about its mission?
Right. The Global Spatial Data Infrastructure Association was formed in 2004. Essentially, our biggest event is a global conference. We used to hold about every 18 months. Now it's becoming about every 3 years because our next conference isn't until October next year in Taiwan. The remit is basically to collect information about spatial data infrastructure, implementation practices, best practices. We've got special consultative status with the UN, so we contribute to the GGIM activities. We do newsletters, monthly newsletters, regional newsletters. We have our website, which we try to keep up to date. And we're getting into the area on the legal side. We started a project a year and a half ago with one of our members, the Technical University of Delft. It's the Geospatial Information Legal Interoperability Map of the World, GLIM. And they've got a team at TU Delft, which is now handing over to another member from Catholic University Louvain, collecting information on licensing practices in different countries in the world relating to geospatial information. And we put this up on the map, so you can log into the map and hunt and seek. The next phase, which we started this year, is to then tie that into specific instances of licenses, not just this country tends to use Creative Commons or something, but the actual licenses being used by different agencies. So we've always had within the association a focus on legal and socioeconomic activities. We had a committee called the Legal and Socioeconomic Committee that I was chair of some time ago before I became Secretary General, and other activities. We have technical work going on. We did the SDI cookbook, one of the very early online wiki-oriented SDI cookbooks, which a lot of countries have looked at and used, especially in Africa. They adopted that and made their own African SDI cookbook. So we're doing a lot of work with that. UN Economic Commission for Africa, one of our members. So we've got a lot of focus on developing nations. One of our biggest, to me, useful outputs, is the small grants program, where we take sponsorship money, issue small grants of maybe $2,500 up to a maximum of $5,000 after a call for proposals to do things like run training seminars, host workshops, mainly in the developing world. We've done 104 of those so far since 2004, and this year they were sponsored by Natural Resources Canada. Next year, the Natural Resources Canada is sponsoring another 5 projects for us. So it's really getting the SDI message out to people. I mean, we are a group of experts. There's 37 organizational members. We come from academia, pretty even split, academia, industry, and government agencies, a few NGOs. And we have about 350 individual members. And Members can join the association from low and lower middle income nations for free. They don't have to pay any fees. We're trying to make as much of our information open access as possible, so people can learn what we're doing and learn from our reports. When we hold the conferences, we have anywhere from 400 to 600, 700 people. The one in Addis Ababa in 2013, November, was 750 people. We publish proceedings online, freely accessible. Sometimes books come out of these. These are peer-reviewed articles as well. They're all open source, open access. And we link up with the Joint Board of Geographic Information Societies, GeoBytes, which we're also represented on, and that's represented at GGIM as well. So we're trying now, because UN GGIM came along, is to do more work with them, to use some of our resources to help them out, because they don't have enough resources either. There's never enough resources when you're doing spatial data infrastructure on a global basis. We're not trying to connect the whole world into an SDI. We're trying to disseminate best practice that we learn about from our own members. We're based in 35 different countries now, and 55 countries for the individual members, to get that best practice back out there where it fits. The emphasis for the rest of this year and next year leading up to the conference is more on capacity building. I was just in Cape Town 3 weeks ago. We ran a full-day workshop on marine SDI. We're now working with the International Hydrographic Organization on developing. They have a marine SDI working group. The IHO, which used to base its standards on chart navigation, safety of navigation, they developed a whole new class of standards in the last few years called the S100 series, which is designed to use the hydrographic data they do collect for a lot more things: aquaculture, coastal management, etc., not just safety of navigation. So we have the IHO involved, or we are now involved with the IHO on that basis. The Consultative Group for International Agriculture Research, CGIAR, asked us to run a workshop in USGS in Sioux Falls, South Dakota in 2002 for their institution. CGIAR represents 14 agriculturally oriented international research institutes: the Potato Research, Maize Research Institute, Rice Research, all over the world. And they really had no idea about IPR, including right down to patenting the things that they were developing in some of these institutions. They wanted everything to be freely available. We said, well, fine, if you hold the patent, you can make it freely available. But if you develop something and then somebody else finds a way to patent, a new strain, then you don't have control anymore. And that was very successful. Several of our members were invited along to that conference in Sioux Falls. It was a 2.5-day workshop. And that was when they also asked me to develop a primer. We did our first primer on legal and policy issues for, basically it was called Agricultural Geospatial Information then, but it's pretty widely ranging. George Cho came over from Canberra, who's done several books on geospatial IPR. So it's where we're heading today. We try to stay away from the pure technology stuff. I mean, Open Geospatial Consortium does that. ISO does the standards coming in from OGC. Our members include Esri and open source people like Boundless are members of the association, so they're doing the technology side. GeoCat, Jerome Thurin, who developed, Titular, who developed GeoNetwork, is a member of the association. So we get both the proprietary software and open software community involved. And we're trying to get more of the open data people involved, the Open Data Alliance, people like this. So we're moving more into the data aspect and the IPR issues related to data, rather than just the GI technology. That's already covered more or less. And I've just been talking to people here at the conference, and just about everybody agrees we've done the technology now. Now, when it comes to putting in an SDI, the issues aren't technology anymore. They're organizational issues, information culture, understanding data access principles, agreeing data sharing principles, understanding cost benefit. Even here in Europe, where we've had Inspire running since 2007, and we've been doing SDI, trying to develop an SDI at the pan-European level since 1995, we still have cities, municipalities, regions of countries, and whole countries who haven't even done a cost-benefit analysis to see what this is all about, which is required by the Inspire Directive. So there's a lot of activity taking place on that side. So we're more focused on, I would say, the non-technical aspects of SDI implementation. My current role, I also work for the European Commission as an external expert reviewing projects that they fund from the information, what used to be the Information Market Directorate. I forget what it's called now because they changed their name about every 4 years, based in Luxembourg, where I worked for 10 years with the Commission. And a lot of these projects are now focusing on open data. They want to take open data, bring it into the information market by letting people have unrestricted access to it, government data, add value, come up with a new product, a new service, a new mobile application. Great, that would really help the information market. But quite often, what we're seeing in practice, it isn't a single open data set that you need to do your new product or your new service. You need multiple data sets. And some of those data sets may not be as open as others. Some may not be open at all. So you have to find a way, if you're going to deliver that final product to the marketplace, how can I bring all of these data products together in my final service? And that's where we tend to find in all of the project reports and all of the final reports this big box called digital rights management, showing some data going in and some data coming out, but nobody knows what's inside that box because it's a very complicated process. What we're trying to do in a lot of these projects, they're talking about dynamic data, tapping into web services on the fly, pulling that data in to do another web service, which is what the one they're perhaps offering free if it's a government agency, or trying to sell very low-cost access to. In that case, you really do need some way to manage whatever the license terms may be, even if they are completely open and free licenses, but you still want to have, maybe by attribution or something on your data. This has not been done yet. I can think from my own personal experience of the projects that I've reviewed for the Commission, we're talking at least 10, 12 projects going back probably 7 or 8 years now in both the Information Market Program and in the Research Technology Development Program, the RTD program, FP7, now Horizon 2020. We just end up, everybody develops these wonderful new tools, these wonderful new services that you don't even need to be you do not need to be a technical expert to create your new service. This is always the dream, but they all require data. And what you find in the projects is all that data is freely available for the project. So it's all been agreed by the project partners that even where they might have restrictions on the use of that data, for the project, it's freely available. So you can basically do what you want to develop the tools. Every one of these projects, going back probably 7 or 8 years now, is required to produce a business model, an exploitation plan, and a sustainability plan, or they don't get funded. We're not just throwing money at these people to do fancy research. In fact, there's supposed to be very little research done. They're supposed to be taking existing technology and innovating it to create new information products. This is about the information market, growing the size of the information market. And if you end up not being able to manage your rights at the end of the day, then the project ends. We're talking projects that get funded for anywhere from 2 million to 8, 10 million euro for a single project. And the tools are developed, and maybe they actually can't be used very much afterwards, except perhaps by the organizations who did the development work. They use it internally or maybe within their own state or their own government. So we still have a long way to go, I think, to come up with this dream of being able to merge different data sources, forget whether it's open data or not, but even merging different data sources into a single final product with some value added to it to help increase the information market.
But it's not, it's foreseeable. I mean, other industries have figured out ways to do this. Certainly the scenario that you described, where people hadn't negotiated licenses for commercializing, if you will, the products and services that are going to be developed, is going to lead to a situation where all you can use it is for internal use. And so I guess one question I would have to you is, was that done because they couldn't get the data providers to agree to commercial use or broader commercial use, or was it because no one thought to ask for it? Or
no, it's because, well, certainly here in Europe, and we're talking about, I mean, I'm reviewing European projects, you have even national mapping cadastral agencies who don't make their data freely available. You have Weather Bureau, weather services, national weather services do not make their data freely available on the American model. You have to pay for it, and sometimes you even have to pay for the models that create it. So, but on the other hand, in the next state, perhaps in Denmark or Finland or somewhere that's a bit more advanced than the open data, open government approach, you will find it freely available, actually unrestricted use.
Right.
Everybody can access it. It's on a website. You can download it. You can do whatever you want with it. They don't claim any liability or responsibility, but it's up to you. That's fine if you're looking at something to do in that member state, or in that state, or for a city in that state. If you're trying to do something that's cross-border, which is what the pan-European SDI is all about, that's where it gets very complicated. And even within a state, for example, the famous case in Europe here is Ordnance Survey in Great Britain, which is a trading fund which is required to earn its upkeep by selling data. It doesn't get, in the past, it did not get tax funds. It had to sell its information and its expertise to fund its operation, which was 120 million pounds a year. So you can't just give away data when you need to earn 120 million pounds a year. Then recently, the UK government, when it started opening up lots of other government data, then agreed that, okay, some of this data from Ordnance Survey should be made available. It's topographic mapping data for the whole nation. So they started making a contribution to the OS budget, but they still have to earn a lot of money themselves by continuing to sell data. Now that's about to be modified yet again. It involves government decisions well beyond the geospatial community. Right now we have a brand new government in the UK. My wife is British, we have a house in the UK, we follow the politics. And the first thing they're going to do to try to fill a £12 billion gap in the budget is start selling off more state assets, including even some of the national research centers, things like this, privatizing them. Now when you've got that mindset operating at a very high government level, by the time it filters down to what's going to happen with something like a mapping agency or the meteorological office, it becomes a much more complicated scene. They will be even under more pressure perhaps in the future not to just give things away, even though the ethos of the government is open government data is good for governance. That's just one member state. The point is you've got completely different or quite opposing principles across the EU. We have 28 states. We all have to work together.
There are, one problem that I see is that there's a lack of a consistent definition of what constitutes open data.
Yes, of course.
And that is often reflected in the license agreement upon which open data is licensed. And so even if you're developing products and services with quote unquote open data, you still need to conform 3 or 4 different license agreements. And some of those you can't circle those.
Well, this is why some of the projects, in a way, cheat. I'm working on a project right now, not as an evaluator, but as a member, and I won't mention the name of the project. It'll probably get me in trouble. But it's decided, it's an open data. The last 2 letters, the last 2 words in the project title are open data. It's about using open government data at any level of government to create new applications. And we have a system architecture being developed. We have pilot applications, some that already exist and will be modified, some that don't exist, to create some sort of system where almost anybody without too much technical knowledge can create a new application. This is the dream. And a lot of projects have been looking at this for a long time. The way they get around the open data problem or the licensing problem is they defined in the first 3 months of the project that open data means only completely open, freely available, unrestricted data. So by coming up with that definition, basically we're saying the only people that could use, for sure, the vital tools that come out of this project are people that are accessing completely free open data, the highest level from the Open Data Foundation, the Knowledge Foundation. And that's fine if that's all you ever needed to do your product or your service. But the minute you need something else, even a different level of the open data license, because there's about 5 or 6 types of open data license, then you can't be sure that these tools are going to work because there's no digital rights management facility built into that. So you're right back to agreeing licenses, licensing terms. Is it transaction-based? Is it time-based? Is it usage-based?
So when you say digital rights management, you're talking about actually a technical solution to the legal issues.
Yeah, a technical solution to the legal solution. We want it automated on the fly, which is why I was, in 2006, Open Geospatial Consortium started looking at the digital rights management reference model, GeoDRM reference model. It became an international standard. It's now an ISO standard. We developed the first specification, I think in 2007 or 8, for GeoRel, the Geographic Information Rights Expression Language, right, which tells you exactly how to create schemas to embed the rights in the database, in the description of the database. So an automated software agent, an automated program could read that data according to an international standard that also became an international standard in 2011, an ISO standard, and now the software can handle the licensing arrangements, okay? You have identity authentication and other aspects to be involved. But let me finish. Nobody's ever implemented it. Not a single company, Esri, Cantera, Intergraph, nobody has ever implemented the GeoRel, the Geo Rights Expression Language at the GIS level, which means you don't have it. The way you do have with so digital signatures, you can hide in images, which if you're using Adobe Acrobat, and I bring an image into my computer system that's got a digital signature hidden in it, it'll tell me that this belongs to somebody, and they hide it in the pixels. And it will actually tell me that it's there because they built it into the software. So the only way GeoRel would work would be if you built it into the tools that access the data sets that have the rights expression information built into them. And nobody's going to do it. I mean, I just talked to several people here who do this software, who do license management software, security management software, and they're basically saying, no, nobody's ever asked for that, and we're probably not going to do it. So I don't know. We spent an awful lot of time trying to get this rights expression thing done for the geo community, because there is another ISO standard for rights expression. There is an REL standard in ISO as well, and this was the geo version of it. I'm not sure how many people ever implemented the ISO REL standard either.
Well, thank you very much for taking this time. This has been great.
Thank you for talking to us.
My office was created after the terrible events of 9/11 as a response to the fragmentation in policy, the ineffectiveness of practices, and the failure to effectively use technology. We're facing many challenges about improving information sharing. And as a former natural resource specialist who used this technology, geospatial technology, 20 years ago to improve land use planning and resource allocation, and as the former co-chair of our Federal Geographic Data Committee, promoting our national spatial data infrastructure. So what is responsible information sharing? To keep to Hugo's encouragement of a simple message, it's really about putting the information people need, decision makers, frontline operators, in their hands in the right form, at the right time, in a way that enables them to do their jobs better, faster, cheaper, easier. And it applies equally to open data, as well as to more sensitive information which has some level of control and safeguarding that must be applied. Initiative and lead the data.gov program at the beginning of our current president's administration. But I also have to talk a little bit about some open data is not so open to everyone. There are certain kinds of information that must be controlled to certain audiences, and the technology is equally capable of that, as well as purely open to everyone. So policies, processes, practices can provide confidence and accountability. We've applied privacy policies to give the public confidence we're not going to use information in a way that would adversely affect them. We've established information sharing agreements so that partners can trust each other in the processes to encourage sharing of information with each other. And we've adopted things like interoperable data standards and compliance mechanisms to give confidence that what you think you're going to get can be used, it's fit for use and suitable for the purposes you want to make it. So the scope of our mission is interesting in our government structure because, as far as I know, it's fairly unique. You can see on the vertical axis that we work across 5 major communities of law enforcement, defense, intelligence, homeland security, and foreign affairs internationally. You can see in the x-axis that we've had an evolution in the gray band of what's included in the information sharing environment, migrating from initially a terrorism, weapons of mass destruction, homeland security, to more recently the evolution of threats and challenges in the cyber environment. And then in the third dimension, what's particularly unique for our government is not just working across federal government agencies, but we have a legal mandate to work with state and local governments, tribal governments, Native Americans, with the private sector and international partners. And that makes it significantly challenging, but also very exciting. So think about the challenges. On the left-hand side at the top is the threats and risks that we're facing are fast evolving. Whether they're geopolitical, whether they're cyber-based, you can't sit pat on the past. It really imposes a need for us to come together and work together and be part of the leadership and relevant to the leadership, and do this by leveraging enterprise approaches. So if you look down the right-hand side at the top, interoperability becomes key. This information sharing environment doesn't magically happen. One of the things we learned in the past was our data was in pockets, it was fragmented, it was incompatible, it was not interoperable. We didn't have common approaches to doing business together. So we spent time, we wasted precious time meeting each other, getting organized, and figuring out how to attack a problem together instead of attacking the problem. We had differences in the policies, and I've come to learn in the last few years that we have most of the technological solutions to the problems we need. It typically consumes the most time and effort to deal with the legal, the policy, barriers and dissimilarities. We have unfortunate saying, I hope I don't insult any lawyers in the room, when we need to get our lawyers involved, it tends to slow things down. And then finally on the capabilities, if you look down at the bottom of the slide, we're literally trying to deal with over 300 million citizens. I learned recently we have over 20 million registered businesses that are all part and parcel of this private sector engagement. We have roughly 750,000 law enforcement officers. They're distributed in 18,000 police departments across the country. How do you get them to work together effectively and be timely in response to the problems? So our mission straddles these 6 priority areas that I would offer to you. All have geospatial challenges and opportunities and are in many ways geospatially enabled nowadays. You actually heard from Governor O'Malley on the statewide and regional information sharing environment we're working in. That's the place-based policing, intelligence-led policing. We don't have enough resources to cover every crime, every place, and on a risk-based approach, it's been proven that you can have a very high effectiveness if you concentrate your resources intelligently where they need to be. In the cyberspace, a recent evolution, very serious challenge, the geospatial aspect of this in the time dimension, in combination with virtual network analysis, gives you a lot more intelligence about where are the physical assets, because cyber is a global issue. It's at remove, we are having people attacking systems in our country that are completely across the globe. Watch listing, screening, and encounters is about trying to find known or suspected terrorists and prevent them from doing harm. Well, obviously, if you can find them and you know where they are, where they're traveling, you have a greater opportunity to interdict. In domain awareness, our poster child of success there is the maritime domain. Ships moving all over the planet with cargo and passengers that you need to know where are they going, what are they doing, and we've got some really good success in standards-based information exchanges both in the US and internationally in the maritime domain. The air domain is coming on in a similar way to follow air traffic. We put all of our critical infrastructure, like electricity, transportation, in this category as well, because it has many of the same characteristics. We're involved in helping support fighting transnational organized crime, probably fairly obvious. Human trafficking, gun smuggling, drug smuggling. Knowing where that stuff is going is critically important to be able, again, to interdict and prevent. And then the 6th category is incident management. That's a combination of natural disasters or man-made disasters, violent events. Having that data in place in advance and the system's capabilities to inform the first responders can save lives and protect property. So we've taken an approach that I think has some merit for a conversation here of what's the value proposition? How do you actually get policymakers? How do you get practitioners in your programs? How do you get the technologists to actually agree on a way to work together that's going to deliver greater value than the way they used to work? And on the one side, unifying the user community, the customer, the stakeholder, what do they need, actually helps simplify the requirements, translate them into technically executable information exchanges. I don't really care. They don't really care what system somebody is using natively. They really do care if they need information from someone else, that they get it in a form they can ingest, they can understand, they can analyze and process and do action. It's critical to involve the industry, the technology industry, in this conversation. In the end, if we do this, we think we can get several things better than we have in the past. We should be able to have standards-based solutions built into the technology they deliver to us. Interoperability, quote, off the shelf. I shouldn't have to come along and invest in interoperability as an add-on after the fact at extra cost. It should be integrated in the solution. That's going to actually make those solutions more valuable, more effective, and it should increase the uptake of the sales, the scale. That's going to reduce the cost for the providers and also reduce the cost for the consumer when you can have economy of scale in the solutions provided. So in order to do this, I go back to that cube I displayed. I said, how are we going to work together? We actually have undertaken an effort to bring together a variety of the organizations you see displayed here, standards development organizations, government agency programs that work on interoperability standards, and then technology associations. And we formed this thing called the Standards Coordinating Council. It's been up and running for about a year now, as a public-private partnership to enable those different organizations to work together and collaborate on delivering those interoperability solutions I talked about. We're familiar with the geospatial standards. I would highlight for you at the bottom of this slide that the Open Geospatial Consortium is one of the main plank members of our Standards Coordinating Council, and that was in recognition of the value and the benefit of having those geospatial standards and interoperability for that information. So they're working on something. We established an information interoperability framework, a national interoperability framework for information sharing. And then we decomposed it into something we call project interoperability. And that's a combination of the management practices you see across the bottom. How do you have collaborative governance? How do you do planning together? How do you normalize policies? Line up your budget resources and measure your performance and communicate to the people that you're working with. That's the management plank. On the right-hand side are a set of technological architectural capabilities that I would highlight a few things for you. We've been using sort of a simple story to tell it. Tag the people, tag the data. If you can identify the roles of the people involved, their identities, and you can assign tags to the data, you can automate your policies to intersect who gets which data and what are they allowed to do with it. And we're finding this to be a very effective framework for promoting this kind of interoperability, and it has gone internationally. The one that's in there called the National Information Exchange Model is a business process for common requirements, technical XML-based exchanges. Recently, you saw that adopted in Australia. Japan has been talking to us about it as well because they're getting interested in formulating their approach to the 2020 Olympics. We've had a lot of interaction with the EU recently and have found it mutually beneficial. We've adopted an information maturity model. We are sharing vocabularies to try to normalize internationally. And then we are going to talk today a little bit about an opportunity for us to do a similar thing in the geospatial arena. So one of the things I get to deal with in my world is different levels of sensitivity of information, ranging from very sensitive to wide open to the whole of society. And what I'm finding is we have the technology, those little bricks in there are signifying cross-domain guards, firewalls, between very highly sensitive and classified information and less. The capability is there technologically to move information up and down between with proper sanitation to inform greater knowledge across the entirety of the population. What it requires is a very solid set of policies, a solid set of processes around how you do that, and the technical practices to properly move data up and move data down. In the end, you end up with a greater pool of information and knowledge than either one of those silos separately. So it's no news to this audience that the geospatial information and capabilities we have available to us now are amazing across the range of systems, the solutions, but I want to lead into a concern around those capabilities. Because of the need for the interoperability, we sponsored a project to develop underneath that overall information interoperability framework a geospatial interoperability reference architecture. And I need to be careful because there's somebody in the room that's going to hold me honest to this. It is not a technically specific reference architecture for the purists. It is a guide, a framework for governance, business processes, data, applications and services, infrastructure, standards, security, and performance. We are really excited about this, and we are really looking for the opportunities to promote this in the international arena, because we also believe there's other similar efforts around the world that we would like to compare and align and see if we can leverage in partnership with others. But it is a work in progress. I would encourage you, it's available online, or if people are interested in looking at it, that's the URL where it can be found. We are working on making it into a webified, more useful, consumable framework online in the near future. So the one thing I do need to talk about today is all of the good stuff we've heard about as a certified security professional and a former CIO who has lived with several data breaches. I would suggest we ignore that at our peril. The more reliance, the more capability we deploy for the use of information technology to support the basic functions of our economies and our societies, the more critical it becomes that we don't fall victim to the type of threats that you see displayed on this slide. It's essential that we understand the risks, the values at stake, and proactively plan for them and manage them, not to walk away from the technology, but to manage it, or we're going to be at risk of critical disruption. And unfortunately, you can see in the news every day, too many organizations, countries, large corporations have waited until after they were attacked and compromised to then make this a priority and do something serious about it. In recognition of this for us, the President signed out an executive order 2 years ago and another one this year to figure out how to get a public-private partnership on the critical infrastructure, because most of that's owned and operated by the private sector. Every citizen relies on it. The government cannot mandate and control, and there's a strong resistance to legislating or regulating the behavior of the private sector. It is the essential public-private partnership. If you think we have a challenge now, expect geometric increases in the number of automated sensors connected to your networks that have time and place characteristics that are amazing in what they can provide for capability, and yet they become another vector, another point of entry and attack. Someone skeptical in the audience asked me, do you mean to tell me that my refrigerator is going to be the source of my next cyber attack? And the honest answer was yes, it's already happened. There was a recent denial of service attack where the refrigerator, which was network aware and wireless, was a platform for a denial of service attack. So don't turn your back on your appliances. So what's happening? You've seen the trends about the capability, the amazing things that can be done, and at the same time, we're becoming very, very dependent on them for our daily existence. That means we have to get smarter and more effective on reducing those risks to a level we're willing to accept. One way to do that is to improve the sharing of cyber information. Just like we have geospatial information for natural resources or health, we have to get smarter about how to share information about the threats so we can then become smarter about how to protect ourselves from those threats. There's a number of initiatives underway. I'm not going to go into too much detail here for that, but I would just encourage people to think about cyber as a potential Achilles heel for your programs, and make sure that you have a strong partner in your cybersecurity officials, your CIOs, and that they make sure that your platforms deliver those value capabilities and do not present unacceptable risks to you.